5 o'clock. It's time for the agenda meeting, Natchitoches Parish School Board for August 4th, 2020. Ms. Reynolds, could we have a roll call?
Yes, sir. Mr. Danzy?
Here.
Mr. McQuire?
Here.
Mr. Benefield?
Here.
Mr. Garner? Mr. Harris?
Present.
Mrs. Gedro?
Here.
Mrs. Willis? Mrs. Broadway?
Here.
Mrs. McGaskey? Ms. Palmer?
Here.
Ms. Phelps?
Here.
Okay, Mr. Garner, are you with us?
He's muted at the moment, but yes, he is here.
Okay, and what about Ms. Willis?
Ms. Willis is also muted at the moment, but she is also here.
Okay, we have a quorum.
Thank you. This time, I'd like to ask all members of the public attending the meeting to practice social distancing and to wear a mask. See the mask, make sure we're all doing social distancing. We have a large agenda for tonight, and let's commence. Please silence your phones, and if you have, if you'd like to speak to an agenda item, please grab a form in the back of the room, complete that form, and pass it up forward. Mr. Eloy, can you lead with your superintendent report?
Yes, sir. Thank you. So we have had an extremely busy past few weeks. I'd like to start off by saying some very positive things have been going on. We had the President's Award for Excellence in Math, Science, Teaching by Ms. Paula Callender, and we're very proud of that, and we will be honoring her in the weeks to come, but that was put out by the White House and by the President, so that's a massive honor for both her and for Natchitoches Parish. We had a very effective, I believe, town hall where we brought in Dr. Mason, the Chief Medical Officer from the Natchitoches Parish Regional Medical Center, and we were able to, for about an hour and 15 minutes, I believe, we live streamed to everyone in Natchitoches Parish who had a Facebook or YouTube connection, and we were able to answer all the questions that we've been receiving over the past few weeks. And I believe we answered almost all that we could, and if necessary, we might plan on having another one because it was so effective. We did a walkthrough of LP Vaughn with a few board members and a few district staff where we were able to show the plan that they have for the next school year and kind of use them as the template for how all schools should be formulating their plans. And, you know, I appreciate so much Ms. Ducote because the plan she provided and the assurances she provided based on all the logistics she had figured out really put, I think, everyone in the room at ease about how safe students can be at the different schools. I'm happy to report that the water fountains that we've ordered are currently en route. They have been shipped and they will be delivered to us probably within the next week. And we have planned for installing those, and those are, again, those touchless bottle fillers. The thermal thresholds are here and are currently being installed. In fact, Mr. Kozad sent me a picture today of a camera at LP Vaughn, I believe, that was installed and ready to go, and so that's exciting. His team will be putting those in over the next few weeks, and that's very exciting for the health and safety of our students. We also received an order from GOSEP of 6,000 washable masks and over 10,000 disposable masks, and also a large number of thermometers for each school, 3 apiece. So that was about 42 of those thermometers. Yeah. We know that we've ordered more computers because our first order came in and we were able to distribute those, and we have to order a few more for other teachers and personnel. So we have those on their way. We also have the hotspots that we have been anticipating. They've been on back order, but those will be in hopefully in the next week or so, and then we will be able to start installing those. Mr. Kozad has told me no matter what time in August they come in, assuming they come in August, because that's what we've been told, his team will work around the clock to get those installed. I think the number we're going with is 30 hotspots by day 1, assuming we're not pushed back. and then they will continually add to that number as we receive more of those items. We would also like to highlight virtual school. We have finalized our enrollment. We, I believe, are at over 2,500 students, which is about 44% of our district. We did have some people who contacted us over the weekend who said that they were not aware, so we were able to sign them up because we want this to work for all families and we don't want to be too rigid in that respect, so we were able to sign them up. And right now, principals and schools are calling all those parents and advising them as to what virtual looks like, what they need to have in place, what they can expect, etc., and really helping those parents make the best decision. We do feel that some of those parents, based on those interviews with principals in schools, will probably decide not to go with virtual, and some will stay. And we think that number is probably going to hover around 2,200 to 2,300, so still around that 40% range of the entire district. We have a new FAQ up for the entire Strong Start, COVID, everything going on that people can access on our website. Going back to the virtual school, we are waiting on a little bit of guidance from LDOE because they are putting out some virtual school guidance, so we want to make sure we're in line with them, but that's coming out this week. We also are looking at the specific numbers of how many students should be in a class, but what we're putting there is you might have a class of a larger number, but a teacher, at no point would the teacher be teaching that entire class. They would be teaching groups within that. So, for instance, a teacher may have on their roster 40 students, but they would have them in groups of 10, and that way, maybe at 9 o'clock they're doing asynchronous with Group A, then an hour later Group B, so on and so forth. And we are happy to state that Ms. Felicia Pinckney is leading the charge for virtual school in conjunction with the curriculum team, and she's getting all that prepared to where we can make our final staffing decisions early next week. And that way we can move forward with that with more than enough time to train these folks and all that fun stuff. Other than that, we've made some changes that we will talk about tonight to Strong Start. But for the most part, everything's going very well. We are very closely following other school districts that are opening this week to really see what's working for them, what's not working, so we don't make the same missteps. And we're watching, this Friday we'll have a conference call with all the superintendents who started this week, so they can impart their wisdom to us as to what to do and what not to do. And also, my final thing, I would direct you to the personnel report. We have some big moves in the personnel hires and some people who decided to retire or leave us, and so we're interested to discuss that. And also, we have some good news in the transportation report as well that we're very excited about. So, other than that, things are just going very well, and we feel like we are truly going to have that strong start we promised y'all come August 31st.
We need to recognize Ms. Pam Pierce at this time.
Hey everyone, I'm really happy that I can take my mask off just that you can see me smiling. I mean, you never know the expression under a mask, but I'm here to say thank you so much for your continued support. We couldn't do what we do without the support of the school board, of course. We've had an interesting summer. We continue to engage our students virtually as much as we could. The only thing that totally got canceled for us this summer was 4-H camp. And, but we still had virtual 4-H camp activities. If you can imagine that, we did some science and engineering and technology activities, and kids could log on and participate right along with us. So we had a ton of Natchitoches kids that, or Natchitoches Parish, kids that participated in that. I left you a little paper on your desk, and this summer we also did 4-H University virtually, and 4-H University is the state 4-H contest for 7th through 12th graders. We had 25 students participate from across the parish, and y'all, I'm super proud because we had 25 kids participate, and 21 of those 25 placed on the state level. And of those 21, we had 9 state winners from right here in Natchitoches Parish. So because they're state winners, they've won super cool trips, they won scholarships, and all kinds of things that will brighten their future. So we're really proud of that, and that's a super big deal. So I mean, until you see it in black and white, and of course I highlighted our Natchitoches wins, you don't realize the impact that Natchitoches Parish 4-H is making. I think the last time I spoke with you, I can't remember when, I think Ms. Guidro said it was this time last year, but the years just, the days go slow and the years just seem to fly. But we are right at almost 1,100 4-H'ers. So in 4 years, we've grown from about 360 to 1,100. So I'm super excited about that. Programming in the fall is going to look somewhat different, just like school is. We are totally equipped to do club meetings and activities virtually for those that want to participate virtually. I met with Mr. Eloy last week, and he also said that I could work with the principals and go into the schools and go from class to class with the static groups. So I'm excited to be able to have some face-to-face time with these kids, of course socially distancing and wearing our masks and etc. Just, being safe like we all are. So we've done tons of things this summer. We have 7 Natchitoches Parish kids that have been elected to state leadership boards. We have a Northwest Regional Representative, so they're all going to collaborate with other kids from out Louisiana and develop leadership and citizenship skills in addition to what they're already getting right here in Natchitoches Parish. So I'm super excited to start the year. It's going to look different for everyone, but I have hope for the future, and I feel like we're just going to move forward and continue to grow. Any questions?
Ms. Pam, we appreciate your energy.
Thank you so
And what
much.
you bring to the table.
Thank you so much. Does anybody have any specific questions about anything that we're doing?
I just want to say, if y'all haven't looked at that list, that is super impressive. I don't know the exact percentage, but I think
It's almost a fourth. I kind of did the math because I was so excited about that.
yeah, and I think that just speaks to the ability of Natchitoches students, and then also your leadership and passion for those students.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pam.
Okay, and there's one other thing. As you all know, we are funded by the state, and of course, local support funds us 20%. Last July 1st, I became the parish chair, and it's the parish chair's responsibility to seek local funding. In Natchitoches Parish, the school board, the sheriff, the mayor, and the parish government come together to give the money for our 20%. Well, Natchitoches Parish has never been at 20%. We're about, I think, 16 or 17% is the highest that we've ever been. So we are $4,400 short of reaching our 20% goal. The sheriff, the mayor, and the parish government have agreed to give an additional $1,100 in addition to what they're giving. And so I'm just coming to you tonight and asking you, right now you're providing $8,000 support. If y'all could provide an additional $1,100, then we would be at our 20%. I don't even know how that has to go, how it's voted, or if you have to be on the agenda. That item has to be on the agenda separately, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention, and you don't have to tell me tonight. I don't even know that you can, but just to be thinking about that in the next month or so, because I would sure like for Natchitoches to be at 20% support. Our kids deserve that.
Thank you so much.
So,
Thank you so much.
thank y'all.
Thank you, Ms. Pam.
And thank y'all for your support, and again, if I can help in any kind of way, I would love to. So, and I'll put my mask on and I'll exit.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank y'all.
Now we have something that's been long overdue. Ms. Hudlow, Niagara Central Band Director, District 2 Band Director of the Year. And this has been quite some time. Ms. Hudlow, are you available? Can you tell us a little bit about what this award entails? Sure. We won't bite.
Okay. Yes, this award was, it was a voted award amongst band directors from District 2 LMEA, which District 2 consists of 7 parishes: Natchitoches, Red River, Wynn, Avoyelles, Rapides, Grant, and Sabine Parish. And directors from those 7 parishes, we vote every year on the band directors that we feel have done the best job over the I'm always a little awkward to say that, but this year we actually changed our process a little bit, and I want to bring this to your attention. We changed the process to where you have to be nominated by a fellow director before you can even be voted on. In years past, it was just come one, come all, vote for who you feel. And I actually want to tell you that the Lakeview band director was nominated as well. We were the 2 band directors nominated. So both Natchitoches Parish high schools were nominated, and I was fortunate enough to be voted in. It was a really big honor. I've been in this district for several years. Mr. Euler and I used to be at Enrollment Parish together, so he knows how long I've been around, and so it was really a big honor to be honored amongst my other colleagues who I respect a lot. So it was wonderful.
This is long overdue. Go ahead, Jim.
Well, I just know that there's no one who's a bigger champion for music and music education in this district. And one of the first emails I received was from Ms. Hudlow when I received this position, and it was, hey, congratulations, let's talk about band. And I say that as totally complimentary because she is an advocate for her students and an advocate for her content, and it's obvious that her colleagues feel the same way, and I think she's a massive asset to this district. And I know that because we hated when we lost her at Pineville, but the way the Lord works, I was just waiting to go and join her in Natchitoches. So.
Ms. Hudlow, catch you off guard. How many band students did you finish with, prior to COVID?
Prior to COVID, we had around 80 band students, give or take.
Okay.
And that has grown since I've taken this position. I had around 50 when I started.
Okay, great. And so you and both Lakeview had the opportunity to march in the Christmas Festival and the Mardi Gras parades and
Yes.
different things. So that's great. So you're around demonstrating what the band can do, right?
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about the feeder schools and how that works with you now.
Well, the theater schools have been something that I've really focused. That was, when I took over this position, you always have priorities of what you want to focus on and how you want your program to reflect you and your priorities. And so a big thing that I noticed was that we didn't have a lot of theater schools. We had Natchitoches Junior High. I had done a year at Marthawville before I came to Natchitoches Central, and so I started the program there. And we didn't really have any others. So what we ended up doing was I took a year where I doubled at Natchitoches Central and Natchitoches Magnet to start a band program there. And so we have that program up and going now. And the Marthawville position ended up sharing between Marthawville and Provençal. So those positions are in place. We now have bands in every middle school except for, or at least in the ones that feed into Natchitoches Central I can speak of. We have theater programs at every middle school except for lab school. And so that was a really big thing to go from one junior high to almost all of them, which is fantastic. I've worked a lot with Ms. Page on trying to figure out how to place people and how to get these things growing, and it's really, really helped. They're still building. Those middle schools are still building. We have to recruit from the elementaries, and we're still trying to get those off the ground. They don't necessarily have all the resources they need just yet, so that's something we're working toward and something that we're constantly working with each other for. And what I've noticed just in getting those feeders started is the quality of student I receive at the high school. They've already had some instruction before they get to me. So I'm not having to teach beginning band so much. I'm getting to teach advanced methods and trying to treat them like a high school ensemble.
Hearing what you're saying and the inflection in your voice, it looks like you're very passionate about it.
Yes.
And that award was very deserving.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Do you know a former superintendent? Any old business for me? Any new business? Mr. Cozad, do we have any comments from the internet on any agenda item?
We did not, right at 5 o'clock, and let me refresh and make sure no late minutes.
Okay. Board members, if we would take a moment to look at the consent agenda.
just two of us will keep our masks on, just so when we're talking. But hello Superintendent and members of the board, Ryan Johnson with Echo Ride, and great to see everyone again tonight. Happy to share a big update within our terminal here. I'll be introducing Mr. Alfred Matthews, who's our brand new terminal manager, with his first effective date as of yesterday. So really felt it'd be a great opportunity to present and introduce him to you. But we're also excited to introduce him to the rest of our team members and school administrators as we focus on the collaboration. And I'll let Alfred introduce himself as well, but we're really excited for him to bring his leadership and experience within the student transportation industry that he'll shed some more light on. So.
How y'all doing this evening? My name is Alfred Matthews. I'm a third generation transportation provider. I've been in transportation now for about 16 years. Within those 16 years, I've served as a monitor, to a driver, to owner operator. From there, I went into safety management. Lastly, before I left New Orleans, I was operations manager of about 150 routes in New Orleans, serving about 9 different charter schools. I want to say I'm happy to be here, relocated to Natchitoches. Happy to be here, happy to get things on the ball with the COVID experience that we're going to experience. And I'm just ready to get there, get the kids to and from school safely, and make everybody happy.
So we had the ability to speak yesterday, and I think it's obvious to me and Ms. Page how impressive Alfred's resume is, and just I commend Echo for finding such a qualified candidate, and we're very excited about this relationship moving forward and what we'll be able to do for the kids of Natchitoches Parish as far as transportation goes in this next year.
Yes. Well, thank you very much, everyone, and we continue to work hard and work with the school district on being ready for the start of the school year. So also want to commend what the school is doing to put everything in place. So thanks very much for everyone's time.
Matthews,
Yes, sir.
welcome to Natchitoches.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Item number 3, receive the tax commission report. You have the tax commission report in your file. If you notice, there's, of course, June, as expected, is lower than May and so forth, and you can read those periods in the year-to-dates. Still not that bad year-to-date, but we don't know where it's going. Sure. Any questions on the tax commission report? Let's see, receive a budget update. It's in your folder also. And it's, if you notice the budget update, this is through June 30th, ended June 30th. And also there's a month in the back for July. June 30th is, as we know, the picture wasn't pretty, as we saw last month, and it's unfortunate, but it's pretty much the way things happen for the year that we had. And of course, in the back 2 pages, which is July, there's very little information there, and we still are, like we're trying to just feel through that. Those numbers are very preliminary at this point.
Is this the vote sheet there?
No, ma'am. I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear.
Yeah, we haven't gotten to the personnel report, but Mr. Foshi resigned effective July 31st, 2020. So we have folks from that department in order to answer any questions.
Okay, because I had a question about our timber. Who
Okay.
can answer that?
We may have to get back to you, but
Yes.
we can see if, Ms. Pat or Mr. Chad can answer that. They're in attendance tonight.
Ask them what's the question?
Can you ask the question?
Well, the question is, I wanted them, I had a question about that. First, the extent of, what land belonged to Natchitoches School Board back there at Natchez Junior High, because that's a lot of timber around the track and around the back of the school, and I wanted to see how far did, we own the property. And if we own what we could do with, tearing down some of that, brush and trees and everything.
Okay, so we can.
One, it would be, to, generate some funds, but two, it's going to be to clean up, around that area back there by that track. But I can put that on the next agenda, but I just wanted to see what he knew about that timber.
Yes, ma'am. If you tell me those questions, which I have that one, and then the timber question, if you tell me the more specific nature of it, then I can get those answered to you for the Thursday meeting.
And
If you shoot me an email, I can get those, and I'll do that in my superintendent's report on Thursday, if that's good for you.
Okay, I'll send it to you. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. No
we
problem.
probably need to have the timber industry, individual we use give us a report on it. I've tentatively asked for that a couple of months ago, but everything kind of got sidelined. But we do need an update on all our timber properties, and he does that and tell us what's growing, what's needs to be cut, if there's any. There may not be any, and any of his recommendations for timber management. The next is a maintenance report.
So, Mr. Jocelyn provided that to me and provided that for all of y'all. If you look, it's the same way he's been providing that. And we had started on, I think, Reverend Harris, I think last time we were looking into how much we are subbing out, et cetera. And that's obviously going to take a little bit of a time to get back to you because of the changes going on in that department, but it is being looked into. But everything else is the same way that Mr. Jocelyn has been doing that.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Peck.
I'll try to get you that.
Items 6, 7, and 8. Are items that we will hear from them Thursday, I believe. I think that's correct.
Why are they waiting till Thursday to come and then throw it all on us at Thursday for us to think it was wanting us to vote on it? That's why we have committee meetings for them to come and give us what they're wanting or whatever, and then
Well,
for us to go over it and think what we're gonna do, because Thursday they're gonna come here and then they wanted to vote on it, just throw numbers at us like they did before, and before they never could give me a straight answer on the number of what they were gonna save, and that's why.
so I'm gonna make contact with them tomorrow because this was one of those other things that I think in the transition. So I'm gonna make contact and see. We do have some more data for y'all that was prepared, but we can get you that so you don't feel like you're totally in the dark. And I'll make contact with those folks tomorrow and make sure if there's anything extra that we can provide that to you before the Thursday meeting.
You can send it by email like you done.
Yes, sir.
That's great.
You know, they coming to ask for tax exempt, but then last month, we going in the process of, charging all the property property owners in Natchitoches Parish, charging them tax, but then we wanna give multi-million-dollar companies big tax, so that, why do it make sense?
Yes, sir.
You know,
I understand.
I'm
Y'all
just
want to be-
expressing my feeling because if I have to pay property tax, they ought to have to pay property tax. That's just the way I feel about it.
And also what donations, what monetary donations do we get from these large companies? Because Monco is a multi-billion-dollar company, and if they are not donating to the school district, I think we need to look at that when we're making a determination as to what we are deciding on as far as a tax exemption for them. So what?
Yeah, and I'll get that, as much information to y'all as possible tomorrow via email, and that way y'all can feel prepared on Thursday.
I've had some calls from the stakeholders and all, so.
They do, and they need to find out if they provide, you know, for our our students that coming out of high school, they do provide some work and job training, so forth, so, on the jobs.
And find out, ask them to report on the woodwork program, what Markel's been doing here lately.
Because I know, and I'm not up on what they're doing exactly.
Will do.
Number 9, consider approving memorandum of understanding between Outpatient Medical Center, Inc. and the Natchitoches Parish School Board, and that's in your folder, if you want to read that. And as far as I scanned over it, it seems to be what we've actually been doing in the past. Item number 10, consider approving cooperative endeavor agreement between Central Louisiana Technical Community College and Natchitoches Parish School Board. Ms. Pinky, do you want to speak to that?
Yes. We have an ongoing agreement with our Central Louisiana Technical Community College, and it is a dual enrollment agreement. Sorry, thank you. So sorry. It's a dual enrollment agreement where our students are able to get high school credit as well as dual enrollment credit, so they're building their post-secondary transcripts. It's a great opportunity. We've been working with them for several years. I mean, as long as I can remember, I've been here a while. And we just wanted to make sure that the board is aware and will, of course, approve our agreement to continue our efforts with them. But if anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That concludes finance, Mr. President. She talked to item number 10 and number 11.
Yeah, I see that. Okay. All right, thank you. Ms. Page, personnel report. Wait up. There was a question raised on one of the agenda items, and we should have probably talked about it during the transportation report. Are you prepared to discuss that right now?
I'm sorry, what's the question? Yeah, I can address that. So I'm assuming the question is in reference to our Strong Start plan for the buses. And basically we've been working with Echo Ride, but the premise of that is found in the minimum standard guidance from Bessie. And what they've told us is in phase 1, you can have 25% of your students, phase 2, 50%, which assuming we stay in that phase 2 is what we will be adhering to, and then phase 3 is 75%. Within that, we will also be doing a few things. 3rd grade and above will be wearing masks on the bus, and that includes the bus driver. There's also going to be, when students get on the bus, there will be a hand sanitizing station that every student will be made to get on and do. The bus drivers will also be taking, they'll have a roster every day where at the end of the day, at the end of their route, they'll be able to determine who was on and not on the bus, so that way for tracing, if we get a positive case, we'll be able to do that. Also from LDOE, we've gotten guidance and been on numerous calls where they've asked us to increase airflow in the buses, and that's being done in a specific way because I know there was some concerns that you have every window down, that can actually not do the intended purpose. So I believe it's the driver's windows down, a couple windows up front, and then the rest of the windows are cracked, and then the back windows are fully down as well, and that apparently helps with things being pulled out instead of pulled in. We are also allowing students who are of the same household to sit together, but the rest of students will be socially distanced to the greatest extent possible. But we do know that with 40% of our students choosing virtual, the numbers on those buses are going to be significantly down to where we feel very strongly that we'll be easily under that 50% capacity number, but probably in many cases will be even lower than that, and that will allow us to really socially distance. And Echo Ride has been great partners with that, and it's the other thing I'll add to that, because many people have asked this, is will we be doing thermometer or temperature scans before they get on the bus?
Yes.
LDOE has told us not to do that, and I believe that also comes from similar guidance with the CDC, and that's because it actually creates more issues on the bus because with if a student does test positive, you don't want to put a positive student on the bus, and then if they do, then you would have to find someone to take that child if they can't get on the bus, if that makes sense, because parents are already gone. So it actually creates more issues in that regard, and every student will be scanned when they get off the bus at the schoolhouse. So other than that, that pretty much is everything to do with buses. I can answer any other questions from the board or anyone else if there's any questions.
I have a question. Will they have assigned seats?
I believe the bus drivers will be assigned seats based on once they get their roster and the students are on there, so they won't be switching seats day to day. They will be on there. They will have an assigned seat. Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, and we'll load from the back first, and then when we get to the schools, we'll unload from the front first, so that we're able to reduce some of the cross traffic on the bus as well. And there's markings in the aisles of 6 feet apart to help with that as well.
So the buses, even though they have air conditioning, they're gonna have to put the windows down?
Yes, sir. That comes from the LDOE guidance. That we will have the air conditioning going as well, but hopefully with it just being those middle windows, we won't lose too much of the cool air due to that. But it will be a little warmer in the summer months to get that extra airflow.
And then the only final thing I'd add is after every route, the buses will be disinfected thoroughly, also focusing on high-touch areas, tops of seats, handrails, etc. And drivers will be wearing proper PPE, which will be masks and gloves as well. So really appreciate, again, the support with the district and the collaboration on planning, because this is a big undertaking for everyone. But our mission stays the same of delivering students safely to and from school.
And what about days with inclement weather, lots of rain, or when it's very cold?
So we broached that topic with LDOE, and they said their term was in the rare case it rains, which I don't know if they are familiar. I do believe that you would still want to provide airflow without drenching the students, and you would probably adjust the amount of space between the windows and them being totally up. But Mr. Johnson, do you?
Yeah, similar to that, so they would be more cracked versus fully opened, and above the windows there are kind of parts of the bus that stick out to prevent some rain from drippage going in. But I think it's obviously we want to keep the kids dry, but I think also want to make sure that we're following CDC guidelines and minimum standards to keep ventilation, which is important due to COVID. But it's not every window's going to be down and all kids are going to be drenched. That's not going to, that won't happen. And we're working with drivers too and talking with them to make sure as we do our orientation that we're able to work collaboratively with them on the procedures that we're implementing.
So now, what did you say the reason for the Department of Education saying that they didn't test temperature?
So we've been in numerous conversations with superintendents and other leaders within the state, and across the board, I think everyone is. One of the first things that was discussed was, do we scan or temperature scan kids when they come on the bus? And every district has dealt with that same question of, well, what happens when mom leaves, kid gets at the bus, and they test, they have an elevated temperature. And basically no one's come up with the answer to how to deal with the issues that come from that. I don't know the exact reason outside of that LDOE has chosen not to do that. I would assume that a lot of that reason is because of the logistic issues that creates. But that we haven't been given specific guidance as to why they came up with that decision. We've just been told that that's the guidance. But I would probably guess that it's because of what I just said. There may be other reasons as well, but they haven't mentioned them to us.
But you can have a child that may be asymptomatic. The other kids can be exposed from the pickup point to the to the destination school, you know.
Yes, ma'am. And that's why it's so important that we maintain static groupings as much as possible, because again, you know, if we have a bus full of kids and they all are masked up and one kid does test positive, then hopefully only that child will go home, because there wasn't significant exposure because people were masked up. And then, or they, in some cases, maybe they weren't following proper procedures. Well, in that case, only that bus, or maybe not even the whole bus, but just the children who were closest to that child, and things of that nature. But that's why it's important that we keep good rosters of our buses. We keep the same seats, so that way when we contact Office of Public Health, because let's be honest, and Dr. Brumley said this as well, everyone said this, we are going to have cases. Yeah. And the issue is, once we have cases, if we've done everything we're supposed to do, whether it be have our bus rosters, have our assigned seats, have static grouping, then there will be a very formulaic process of what to do next. And it's not going to be everyone freaking out, oh my goodness, we have a case. It's going to be, we have a case. What do we do next? We do this, we do A, B, C, and D. We go about our business. The child or the adult is quarantined or isolated for 10 days or 14 days, depending on the situation, and then we go from there. And I think really it's going to be up to our employees, myself included, doing the proper things, and then we can make sure that the fewest students possible go home, and we really shouldn't even say go home, the fewest students possible get infected, and that way we can minimize the spread, because just as citizens of the world, we need to be doing that. But as citizens of Natchitoches Parish schools, we need to be doing it as well. But we minimize the spread, but we also minimize the amount of students who have to go home and do virtual for a period of 10 days or 14 days. So.
And in the city limits, you know, you're gonna have the kids already hanging out together, because in the city limits, they got bus, you know, they got where the one stop they make, where in the country, you know, they stopping at different houses, but you don't have but a specific, here in the city limits, specific spot that they pick up. You might have 20,
well, and we're also
30
encouraging,
kids,
yeah, we're encouraging
spot,
those spots when, and we're going to be dealing with children, but hopefully some parents there where we can say, hey, when students are at these bus stops, and the most we can do there is encourage, because we can't pay someone to be at every bus stop, but to say, hey, you don't need to be grouped up at those stops. And that's also something that the bus drivers are going to speak to the kids about as well.
Let me ask one more question. The parents will receive informational flyers about the rules and regulations in regards to the bus rides, and also the safety,
yes,
the COVID instructions, safety.
So at a global level, we're putting everything, we're putting on everything on social media, we're putting it on the internet, but we understand that not everyone has access to those things, so
yes.
Then more at the school level, we'll be, communicating that, so everyone, we feel as though with our communication process and that no one will be able to say that they didn't hear in some form or fashion, and hopefully they would have heard in multiple forms, multiple times, from multiple people, the same thing. And because we want people to be informed, but we also want them to do what we're asking, so we feel that's definitely necessary.
Okay. I'd like to start by saying that the number of non-certified teachers, formerly known as long-term subs, has declined significantly. We don't have accurate numbers for the total number of employees, because some of them have not been activated, and some of them have not been terminated. But we are rolling, If you look at the personnel, the administrative changes on here, you'll see that we have Mr. Coleman at Natchitoches Central. We have Ms. Shauna Hicks, who's here tonight over our school food service program. Oh my God, that has been a journey. So, would you like to stand up and say something?
It's only my second day, so I will just say that we are looking forward to providing lunches for both virtual and on-site students, and we're working hard to get that done. ladies that I'm working with, Ms. Mallory and Ms. Connie, have been so helpful, and we are rolling. We're getting ready.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and the last thing on here, under administrative changes, you see Ms. Chris Ashworth, there was just an error. She was not an assistant, she is a principal, and she'll be principal on the junior high side. Mr. Hines is still the principal of record. Okay, and Ms. Broadway asked a question about Mrs. Keller. Mrs. Isaac is going to replace Mrs. Keller at the high school, doing the coaching. That's the only difference. Okay, even though she's at at middle lab, but she's replacing her at the high school. Do you have another question, or does that answer it? No. Does that answer it? No?
I think so.
Oh, okay, all right.
Ms. Page, thank you for your commitment to decrease the number of uncertified in our community.
Okay, well,
Thank
help
you
us
for your-
recruit though, help us recruit. And I have to say this again, I know we've heard it a bunch of times, please thank the people who are working, they have worked really, really hard. I don't think there's a person in this room who's ever worked harder in the position they're now in than what they're doing right now.
Bigger challenge.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Reverend Harris, executive report.
Wait, I'm sorry, did we skip the 2-year performance contract?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we did. Glad you got it. Uh-oh. It's back. Good catch.
Okay, we're just asking that you accept the performance contract of the administrators here.
And, I'm sorry, Ms. Page, did we, I'm trying to make sure did we have the, okay, I see number 3 on the executive report. Never mind, thank you. Sorry. Oh, Ms. Raleigh had a question.
I was just gonna ask, this is just in general, or have we not been doing 2-year contracts? What is this changing?
What is it, what's changed?
Right.
Nothing, it's just that we do 2-year contracts for
Okay,
administrators.
so this is just for
This
this
is
year,
normal.
for this coming year, okay.
Any more questions? Personnel report. Reverend Harris.
All right, number 1, receive update on school nurse roles and responsibilities of prevention and protocol during pandemic. Ms. Tanki upon.
Good afternoon, everyone.
How you doing?
I'm Rebecca Phillips. Miss Allison had a medical, family emergency and couldn't be here tonight, so she asked me to come and try to help support y'all in this. Basically, the school nurses are gonna continue to do the duties that we are mandated by the state. We follow the laws by the state, from the State Board of Nursing, the Bessie Board, and, the Louisiana Department of Education. We start our school year off with our students that take medicines, whether it's daily medicine, routine medicine, or emergency medicines. We have to train our staff because there's not a school nurse at every school. We do cover all the schools, but there's not a physical nurse at every school every day. We rotate around to the needs of that particular school. We train our faculty for as our teachers for field trips, our coaches, and PE teachers and stuff like that for extracurricular activities. Once we get those trainings done, we do child-specific trainings. If it's a student that is diabetic, that's child-specific. That takes us time to go out and train the teachers so that they can help monitor for field trips and stuff. We have students that are peg tube fed. We have to train people to do that. We have students in the past that have had to be catheterized at school. We train people to do that. Once we do our medication certification workshop that gets everybody certified and trained to be able to monitor medicine at schools. We start with our vision and hearing, which is mandated by the law. We screen pre-K, kindergarten, 1st, 3rd, 5th, 7th, and 10th graders. That's mandated by the law. We do immunization audits on pre-K, kindergarten, 6th grade, and 11th grade. We follow up on all that. We continue on. We work as a team. If we have a nurse that's out, whether she's sick or her child's sick or something, we cover each other. We rotate around. We have multiple diabetics in the school that come to see us 3 to 4 times a day. That's just a general average. It could be more than that if they're having problems. We do head lice checks. We train people to do head lice checks. We write care plans and health assessments for our children with infectionalities. There's lots of many things that we do for that, and we just follow up on it throughout the year. I think one of the questions was, what does the school-based health centers do compared to us? The school-based health centers do not do the same things that I just explained to you that we do. They are an asset to our school and to our parish. They do work well with us. We do collaborate well. But like the ones at the high school and stuff, they help out with the sports teams. They can do physicals because they have nurse practitioners and they have a doctor on staff. They follow Cabrini, St. Francis Cabrini guidelines. They don't follow the same guidelines we do. If a child is signed up with them, they can be seen by them, but if they're not signed up with them, then they cannot be seen there. If they are signed up with them, they can get their if they need immunizations, they can give them their immunizations. So it is an asset to have them in the community, but we don't do the same things. They have their guidelines that they follow, and we have our guidelines that we follow.
Mrs. Phillips?
Yes,
What
sir.
do you see the 2 biggest challenges that you foresee right now for the upcoming school year?
Well, we've never faced anything like we're facing now. So, you know, it's going to be a challenge to encourage the students to wear their mask and keep social distancing. We know that there's a designated spot that the student, if we have a student that we suspect may have COVID, that they're to go to that designated spot. They won't be with the nurse. They will be in a designated spot. And if the person that is monitoring that student, if the student is showing some type of respiratory distress or something like that, they can call on us, and we are there to help assist them and back them up for that. But we still have to carry our daily duties with our diabetics. We have several schools that have 3 and 4 diabetics apiece of them. And those kids come in for a morning snack, they get bolus for that. They come in for their lunch snack, they get bolus, for their lunch, they get bolus for that. We do carb counting for that. Some of them take afternoon snacks, we have to bolus for that. Some of the students that are diabetics, the doctor may order for us to suspend their pump and disconnect it before they go to PE, because if they're, you know, a really active child and they go to PE, it can bottom their blood sugar out quicker. So that means they have to come back after PE, we reconnect their pumps, and we resume their insulin. So we can't have the students in there with us the whole time while they're waiting on somebody to come get them, because we can't expose our asthmatic kids or our diabetic kids to those students. But we can be a support and assistance to the person that's monitoring those kids.
So the person that is monitoring those kids, are they medical personnel?
No.
That may not be for you to answer.
No, ma'am. Ms. Palmer, this is Mr. Eloy. No, what we've received is basically what we're talking about here is, and I think she touched on it, was typically it's going to be a student with an elevated temperature, and the process for us is to get the parent there or guardian to pick them up as soon as possible. In that case, we're only making sure that the student stays in the same area and no one else is coming into contact. The only time where we would feel the need to bring in a medical professional is, again, if it was some more extensive or acute version of the symptoms, such as respiratory distress. If that were to be the case, then, just like if a student's having an asthma attack or anything like that, the nurse would be called immediately. But in this case, we're simply talking about a student with maybe flu-like symptoms or fever, and in that case, we will be providing guidance to the staff as a whole as to how to deal with that, but whoever's more specific guidance to those who are covering those rooms.
So I have a question. Let's just do a scenario, and we'll use LP Bond because the children are younger there. Okay, it's in a day in the life of a student and a teacher, and the teacher notices the child is sick. What is she going to do? I mean, let's say the child is coughing. Don't know if the child has a temperature, but what if the child is coughing? What is she going to do? Okay, let's think of a first grader. Okay. Usually, sometimes when the children get sick, in the past, another first grader will take the child to the front, and then they'll wait for their parents to come. How is the process going to work this time? Will somebody come, another teacher, another administrator, will they come down, get the child, take the child up? Like, how is it going to work?
So that's going to be I can tell you some definites and some variables. The definites are, it will not be another student taking a possible COVID positive student or just in general a sick student to the office. That's probably not good practice in general, even if we were talking about flu or strep or anything like that. But I think COVID has made us aware that that's not a good idea. So it'll definitely be an adult. As far as specifically who that is, whether it's an assistant principal, a principal, a secretary, a counselor, a nurse, whoever that is, that's going to probably in some regard be dictated by that school specifically and their specific plan, because we gave them very very specific but somewhat broad guidelines of what they have to do. Within that, there is some freedom where they can do some things based on their staffing and who they have and who they don't have and who's available. I would also imagine that there's going to be some day-to-day context. A student is having that issue, or a student possibly throws up in a class, something of that nature, and it's going to be, hey, I'm the teacher, I'm going to take the student to the class and go next door and say, can you cover my class? Some of those type of situations that happen somewhat in the moment. Do we have plans for them? Yes, but we know that things happen in the moment, and some of those things are going to be dictated by the situation. But we're getting to the granular level where we will have other walkthroughs of schools where we will again invite all the school board members, and if you're able to, great. If you're not, that's fine too. But we're going to do one of those walkthroughs of every school, so that way we can ensure that these type of questions that really speak to the very specific nature of the individual school in the context of, like LP Vaughn has first, second, pre-K, and kindergarten, that those questions can be answered by those specific principals and give you some guidance on that.
Okay, but I do want y'all to see clearly. A teacher suspect a child to be maybe sick, and it could possibly be COVID if they're coughing. Okay, so you're not going to send another child, which I understand, but still a human being still coming down, getting a child that may be sick, and walking them back up there. You see the context?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
What I would say to that is a few things. Number one, we can walk a child to the office and still socially distance, because we're just supervising the child, making sure they're going where they're supposed to. And we would also, at that point, want masks on still. And not to bring in an anecdotal story, but there's been numerous instances where I've read where people have been COVID positive, but because they were wearing a mask and the other individual they were around was wearing a mask, there was no transmission because of taking those steps. So no, we don't want to put people in harm's way, but we also think we can do some of those logistics while still keeping people safe.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Number 2, consider approving strong start final plan. Phil.
Yes, sir. So what I provided for you is that same PowerPoint, and I'm going to highlight where we made changes. Some of these changes were based on changes that came to us from LDOE, some of it based on better guidance, and some of it just based on the changing nature of COVID. So again, this is the same plan with some key shifts. Obviously, the first key shift being the change in school start date, which you already approved. We have also, in phase 1, remember this is a plan based on phases. Phase 1, we can have static groups of 10 students, phase 2, 25, phase 3, 50, and then we also have, as I mentioned before, the transportation issues. What we did also in the plan is in phase 1, where you can only have 10 students at school, 10 students in a static group, is we have prioritized 2 groups that would still make up those 10 student static groups first. And those 10 students would be made up of our students in the desk department, because they have IEP minutes, and specifically not just students in the desk department, but students who spend more than 40% of their time outside of the regular classroom. And the other students we would prioritize would be those students who have lack of internet connectivity. Again, that's assuming we move into phase 1. And that wouldn't be a mandate. Oh, you're in the desk department or you're have no internet, you have to come to school. It would be, we offer that to you as something we can do for you based on those 2 issues. We also, there was some flexibility from the State Department prior to those minimum guidance coming out. They had told us things such as, if you have 26 students in a class, it's not a big deal. When that guidance came out, that type of flexibility went away. So we made sure that we were in line with that minimum guidance. We also added to the virtual option. We had a lot of parents who were very concerned about staying in virtual, making a commitment of a full semester. So what we've done is we've added in the virtual section, the first 2 weeks of school will be a window where a student who's in virtual or not in virtual can opt in or out based on, hey, I thought I could do this face-to-face, this isn't working, I need to go virtual, or hey, I thought I was doing virtual and it was going to be one thing and I just can't do this, I want to go face-to-face. So we're going to do a 2-week period there, and then also instead of doing a semester, which would get us all the way to, I believe, January, we're going to do every 9 weeks where we, in conjunction with the parents and the school, evaluates where the child is, how they're doing, and also, we look at where COVID is, and if a parent wants to make that move, we'll do that. We also added to that students will be able to participate. If they're in virtual, they can participate in the sports programs and in extracurricular programs. We also added to the virtual option, and we did this because, as I told you, it's interesting. Many schools have started this week, and they're having teachers come this week, students come next week. The state is still going to provide some more guidance as to virtual school. So we know that the state sometimes provides guidance after the fact, and that's not a criticism, it's just the nature of the beast right now. If we get some of that guidance, we put in the virtual section that we would, every 30 days, it's the first bullet point on page 7, every 30 days the virtual plan will be reviewed to ensure the program is functioning effectively. At these checkpoints, any necessary changes will be made. We want to be very open with people that this is somewhat new. I think I phrased it to an employee today that basically we're starting an entire new school in a period of 2 months. And people may say, oh, it's virtual. It's a new school. It's a new thing. So we want that to be robust. We want it to be effective and rigorous. But we know that there's going to be some hurdles to overcome and some things that need to be addressed and fixed and all that. So that 30 days is going to be a formal point, because of course we'll look at it every day. But that 30-day point will be, hey, how effective is this? What are some things that need to change? What are some things that need to be reinforced and some things that are going great? And we want to put that in there because we want to be flexible. And then you see those 3 dates, October 28th, January 20th, and March 30th, where students can opt in or opt out. I'm sorry, Ms. Palmer, did you have a question?
Yeah, about why is there a limit on when they can opt in and opt out? You said maybe your mom said every 9 weeks, but like, what if in the middle of the week a mom says, you know what, I want to go to virtual, or I want to go to face-to-face? Why is like there a limit?
It's purely based on what we're having to do, and I know it sounds very straightforward and everything, but what we have to do in this is we have to look at, we have 2,500 students who are in virtual across the district. The problem is those 2,500 students are spread across schools and they're spread across grade levels. So what that ends up doing is it creates a issue as far as staffing, because we have to, if we have 20 kids at LP Vaughn in kindergarten, well, that's easy. We have one kindergarten virtual teacher who can take those 20 kids. But if we keep going back and forth on a Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, then what that does is all of a sudden that virtual section, maybe half those students are gone, so now we have an overloaded face-to-face section and an underloaded virtual section. And so what those checkpoints allow us to do is take care of the logistics of staffing all the teachers effectively. Because what we do if we go to that 9 weeks, we might still have that issue, which I talked about, 10 kids opt out of virtual at LP Vaughn. But what I can do there is I can possibly, if another 10 kids opted out at Marthaville, I might have the ability to combine across district. Although, let me just preface that by saying, before anyone latches on to that our goal is to have teachers at the child's school teaching these virtual sections. So if you have an LP Vaughn student taught by an LP Vaughn teacher, that's our goal. It may not happen that way in every case, purely because of the logistics, but that 9-week period allows us to address it in a more focused, one-time period than if we're having kids jumping in and out week to week. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, I have another question. How would it look if the governor puts us back into phase 1 or lockdown, God forbid, but how would it look?
Yes, ma'am. So phase 1, we would pivot to have 10, no more than 10 students in a virtual section. In a face-to-face section in our static groups. So we would have obviously less students, and as I said before, we would prioritize our deaf students and our students with lack of connectivity. But obviously, in that, I think we all agree, if we move back to phase 1, we would open up whenever that would happen, we would need to go back to the drawing board, because that would be a major shift. And whether it's, hey, we found a vaccine, or hey, we go back to phase 1, there would probably be the need at those points, those massive shifts in policy, to revisit our virtual numbers and our face-to-face numbers, and allow people to possibly opt in or out. I have, as far as being the superintendent, I have some veto power in regards to, not veto power, the opposite of that. I have some ability to work with people, and we're going to try to do that as much as possible. In fact, this weekend, I think we had 11 parents who contacted us via social media who said, hey, I know y'all put a lot of stuff out, but somehow we didn't hear about it, and we want our kids in virtual. We are not going to be those people who say, no, you're not going to be in virtual. Me and Ms. Pinckney talked about it, and we said, yeah, sure, we can let those 11 in. So we're going to work with families as much as possible. All I would ask is that everyone is understanding of the logistical concerns and realities that we have to work with. We want to make parents and families happy and work with them, but we do have logistical concerns that they're facts, they're there.
So we are not prepared to be online 100% virtual if phase 1 comes back up, or lockdown?
We will never be prepared to be 100% virtual, in the sense that there's 30% of our district that do not have internet connectivity. We'll have the hotspots, but when I...
So how are other parishes doing it?
They're not. Simply put, there are some districts that have a better internet infrastructure in the sense that it doesn't matter what street you live on, you have access to high-speed internet. I would assume EBR would be one of those places. When they looked at internet connectivity, they actually already had a program in place, and it wasn't from them, it was from the state, where students could get like cheaper internet to the point of, and I may be misquoting this, where they could get $10 a month internet. That was a program already there that was specific to them, and they could use their CARES Act money to do that. In our situation, a lot of our students don't have internet because of the location where they live, and I could give them a MiFi device, I could give them all sorts of technology, but it doesn't fix their connectivity issues because they don't have cell coverage or they only have telephone access at their house. They don't have high-speed broadband internet. So in those situations, our only option for those folks is the hotspots, which we are going, which they're not in yet. Those are one of those things that was on back order, but we're expecting, second or third week of August, and we're going to put them in as fast as we can. And like I said, we're hoping that we will have 30, but all of this, we are, to some degree, we're at the behest of these manufacturers who, when they tell us they're coming in on August 12th, we say, yes, sir. And then when they say, hey, they're going to come in August 22nd instead, there's not a whole lot of recourse for us to argue that point with them. We are putting as much pressure as we can on them, but so is every district in every state in the United States, and probably some in other countries as well.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. So we added those, and then the other thing I'll draw you to is at the end of your next document. It's actually not part of the PowerPoint. It's your next staple document. These, we originally thought of these as policies, but at the request or the advisement, rather, of our lawyers and forethought, we put these in as part of Strong Start. So your first one is a suspected COVID-19 case, an employee suspected case. What that does is it takes you through everything that we are expecting employees to do at the school level, at the bus depot, at the food service level, in the central office, what they are supposed to do. And it gives you the amount of days they would be out based on exposure versus positive test. And it just outlines that point by point. We can go through it, but we took this policy partially from CDC guidance, partially from LDOE guidance, and partially from forethought and other districts. So this has been vetted. This is somewhat boilerplate as far as COVID-19 guidance goes. The main point of contact for our district, as far as the employees go, will be Miss Page, and we've been doing this. Let me just say, we've had positive cases in Natchitoches Parish. We don't broadcast that, not because of we don't want to be transparent, but because of HIPAA. We tell the people who need to know what they need to know when they need to know it, and we've been doing this policy, and it's been working very well. We had a situation today. The principal did exactly what they're supposed to. Positive case reported. That principal goes to Ms. Page. Ms. Page talks to Office of Public Health. They ask their questions. We tell them what to do. It's laid out completely. It also includes just some more discussion of housekeeping procedures. The areas we wanted to put this in the policy or into the plan to say, yes, you need to clean doorknobs. You need to clean fax machines. We wanted to spell out as much as possible so there's no way someone can come back and say it's not there. So that's suspected. Then we have confirmed case, because there is a difference in how you deal with a confirmed case versus a suspected case. Some of it is the same, but some of it will be different. And then it even goes into, hey, I'm married to someone who has a confirmed case. Can I come to work? The CDC and LDOE and Office of Public Health guidance, and I know this is going to probably throw some people for a loop, but it's in there and we need to talk about it, is If that person says that they can quarantine or isolate themselves from their spouse, then they could come to work. If they cannot isolate themselves, which I'll be honest with y'all, I don't think it would be possible in my household to isolate myself from my spouse, then they cannot come to work. But that's going to be based on the questions and everything through Office of Public Health. And I've just been very impressed with Dr. Martha White, she's our Region 7 Office of Public Health. She knows what she's doing. She is consistent, and she has told us every time what to do. And so far, every time what we have done, it's been consistent, and it's prevented. We haven't heard of spread so far. I know it's summer. I know we have smaller numbers, but we've been able to, at the school level, keep these things under control and not let them grow. The student COVID-19 response policy. Same thing. It's just we're dealing with it from a student issue instead of a personnel policy issue. We talk about 100.4 means you are set aside and then retested. Parents and guardians will be contacted immediately. We are putting they need to come within 30 minutes. That's to reduce exposure for everyone, and it's also just for the child. We know that's difficult for some people, but these are extreme circumstances, and we want to push that as much as possible. We strongly encourage, we cannot force anyone to get tested. That you just cannot do that even at this point, but what we can do is we can say you cannot come to school until you have a non-medically induced lack of fever. And then we say how they need to quarantine, and again, if they come into close contact. We also address the issue of, some people have said, well, what if they don't self-report? And that's crazy to me in this time that people wouldn't do that, but we know they probably will, whether it be intentional or unintentional. And we have said that if someone comes to me and says, I know that whoever has been exposed or been tested, we will investigate those things and just call the person and say, hey, teacher A or parent of student, we have been told this information. We would like to check it out with you. We would just want to do our due diligence. Can you tell us that? And in some cases, they'll be like, oh, that's completely not true. I don't even know this person. In some cases, they'll say, yeah, I did come into contact, but, and we will be able to dictate from there what they should do from there.
So as far as tracing, I remember reading information in some of these campuses about tracing. At what point does the school, because the Department of Health normally does it if there's a case and they have to do tracing, especially if something occurs at school. But the school is going to have enough to do with trying to keep everything clean. And of course, when it comes to the cleanliness and all that with the lower age children, will there be more aids used during this time?
So what we found is, what we've been doing, and again, this is going to become, it's going to become bigger, obviously, but what they typically have done is they don't really utilize any staff, because what Office of Public Health will do is we get the initial report from the principal, and the principal will tell Ms. Page, this is the person who's tested positive or the person who's come into contact. We get all that information, and Ms. Page will kind of do a preliminary, and the principals, most of the principals have dealt with this, a lot of them have, where they know what information she needs off the bat. So it's really the principal or whoever's the administrator, they've kind of gathered probably some info already. Ms. Page, this has become old hat to her, and she's just kind of telling them, I need this, this, and this. They get it to her. She calls Office of Public Health. And typically what's going to happen is the first person they're going to call is the person who came into contact. And that's, in our situation, we're talking about a teacher here. So they call the teacher, and they say, okay, you came into contact with such and such, and they're going to ask them a series of questions. How long were you in contact? Did you have your mask? Did they have your mask? And then they might say, assuming it wasn't prolonged contact, and assuming they had their mask on, it may end there. But if say it was prolonged contact and they feel like they may have been exposed, then they may ask them, well, how many people were you around? So really the onus isn't on the school except for the reporting. The onus is on the person who either tested positive or came into contact to just respond to phone calls. And I'm sorry, I think Mr. Kozad needs to change the battery out so we don't lose.
Correct, Mr. Just pause the conversation. There's going to be a quick break in the video feed, and then it'll come back up.
onus would be on the person who's exposed to have probably no more than a 5, maximum 10-minute conversation with Office of Public Health, and that's typically what it's been. They just call the folks and they go through it with them, and then Ms. Page communicates. And there's going to be more of that going on when school starts because we're going to have more people. But it's been a pretty straightforward, simplistic operation that Ms. Page has been doing really well. So.
Will our district do simulations like some of the other?
Yes, ma'am. What we've been doing is we've been running. So at LP Vaughn the other day, we went through kind of a day in the life. The principal, Ms. Ducote, took us around and showed us, like how lunch is going to happen, all those things. And what that does is, it, number one, helps the principal because I think they can simulate. We can pepper them with questions, and they love that. But then also, we can go through their plan with them. And like I know when we went the other day, some simple things like the pickup for the grab and go breakfast was in an area where the sun hit really well. So someone just mentioned, hey, we might move that over. Well, you start to have an echo chamber when you're doing your plan over and over again, and you forget simple things. So just having some other eyes. But we're doing that with every school, and we'll send out information to y'all to where you can be a part of those. But I don't want y'all to feel obligated because there's going to be 13 or 14 more of those, and those are going to be scattered throughout the next few weeks. And we're hoping to wait a little while till we'd like them to have some of their scanners up and their water fountains, so we can incorporate that into the visits. But we're also talking about doing possibly a video as well that kind of takes people through a day in the life of a student. So,
what steps will y'all take if a parent don't come get their child within 30 minutes?
So that's been a topic of discussion with across the state. We've discussed that with the lawyers and with every superintendent. And what we're basically looking at is the initial thing is we want to ask people to take this seriously and realize this is different than previous years where maybe your kid had a headache and you took a little while getting there. That's what we first want to do. Is our first step is just to talk to the public and say, hey, we need your help with this. But if we have someone who where we fully suspect we have a COVID positive kid and we know that parents are taking their time, then we really feel like that becomes a public safety issue. And so we would take next steps. We're still discussing what those next steps would be because we don't want to immediately go to something like the police or things of that nature because that's not a good look either. But we do feel like this is a child welfare issue, and we need to encourage people in the most diplomatic terms while also being firm, because no longer it's just about the kid or just about the parents. This is about the entire school. And if it's an issue with shutting down a school because a parent chose not to come get their kid and more people were exposed, we want to get that seriousness across. That being said, we do feel as though in those isolation rooms, we can fully protect the rest of the staff and everything, but it's just not appropriate to have a child in there for for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, and they're convalescing in that room by themselves, and also the stigma that comes along with that. We don't want kids to become the COVID kid and things of that nature, and we want to handle these things, but the longer a child stays on campus, the more likely they are to have that stigma. So we're going to encourage people as much as possible, and we're kind of talking that out with Ms. Dubois and some different stakeholders as to what we can and what we can't do, and also to keep the relationships positive as well.
How many people can those isolation rooms hold? Just depending on what area?
Well, one of the things that every principal is doing right now is part of that new minimum guidance from LDOE was that it doesn't matter how large a room is, you can't have greater than 25. So those, and I think in pretty much every case, those rooms are going to have less than 25 just by the nature of their structure. But what we can do in those rooms is every principal is creating partitions. And every principal is kind of doing it differently, but the basis of it is that it's PVC pipe taller than the individuals in the room. So, if you're at LP Vaughn with little kids, you can probably get away with shorter heights, and then at Natchitoches Central, you're probably gonna have to make it 7 foot tall or whatever. But, and then there's material in between the PVC pipe that separates that room. So what we could do in those rooms is use some of those partitions because they're mobile. And you can, it's really as many partitions as you can fit in there. Because obviously, even if we have 2 suspected cases, we don't want those, because one student in that suspected case may have the flu, and the other kid may have COVID. So we don't want cross-contamination there. So we would want to keep those to a minimum with still allowing, as long as they're 3rd grade and above, having the masks and then having the partitions and things of that nature. So each classroom is going to be different, but we would want to keep those numbers as low as possible, and that's what helps when parents come and get kids, because then we can immediately disinfect, and then if someone else has another possible case, we can move them in there without any fear of, cross-contamination or cross-infection.
So Ms. Page, typically, your first point of contact is either a principal or principal designate. Principal, okay, cool, yeah, that's good.
And
We put that principal designee because we know that right now, but now this is going to be first priority for everyone, but we do know that there may be a time when principal's off grounds or whatever, and so we put that in there, but 99.9% of the time it needs to be the principal because this is the most important issue going on, bar none.
and it's confidential.
Correct. Yeah, HIPAA needs to be, we don't need 20 different people with this knowledge on grounds because that's a HIPAA violation, and we don't want people to spread this information, whether it be HIPAA or not. This is people's personal information, and it's protected by federal law, and then there's just also the ethics and morality that go even beyond that of keeping people's stuff private. So.
I had a concern. You mentioned earlier about the thousands of masks that were going to be available
Yes, ma'am.
to the students and the staff. What will there be shields provided for the staff and children that are unable to wear the mask all day because of medical issues?
So what we've been told is, because we actually called Dr. White about that recently, because what we don't want to do with the medical excuses is we don't want that to be a slippery slope where someone says that they have something that's not related to the mask at all, but they try to get a medical excuse. So number one, that there's a very high bar for being excused from that. And what they basically told us, legally speaking, is we need to go through a process. So the person comes to us and says, hey, I have asthma. And we know we have some folks who have already come to us with that. That doesn't automatically necessitate not wearing a mask. What we would do is we would discuss options with them. It might be that they can wear the mask, but then they need 10-minute breaks on the hour to go to the bathroom or go to some outside area, wherever it may be, and take the mask off away from everyone and catch their breath or whatever needs to be done. I'm not using medical terms there. The other option would be to use some, I think we all know that some masks, like the one I'm wearing, it totally cuts off everything and it becomes a sauna in there after a while. There are other masks I use where they're a little more breathable. I don't feel as claustrophobic, so we would work with that. The next option, the only option that they've given us, and this comes straight from the lawyers, the only viable option that the CDC is currently considering in place of the mask is the shield, but it's the shield with, it's a piece of material. It's not a piece of paper, but about the length of a piece of paper that extends past the shield. And what that does is, because on the shield, it's possible because of airflow that droplets can get around the shield. What this does is it collects those droplets. They're still not saying it's as effective as the mask. They don't recommend it over and above, but they do recommend it in those small cases where people have those issues. We are purchasing different type of masks for our students who are hard of hearing. For their teachers so they can read lips. We are purchasing those for students for the SLPs so they can interact in those cases. As far as us purchasing for those people who have medical issues, we have not done that as of yet. That is something that we can look into. But really, the mask, the alternative mask for those people with medical issues is the mode of last resort, because the lawyers and LDOE wants us to exhaust every other option before that's brought to the table. They don't want that to be the immediate alternative, because what the fear is that then we'll have everyone wearing that alternative instead of the best.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Why is pre-K through second grade exempt from the mask?
Yes,
I
ma'am.
don't know.
Yeah, so
You said that we wouldn't have to wear it, but parents can, if parents want them to wear it, they can wear it, but why?
yeah, so let
They
me
don't
speak
have
on that real quick. If parents want their pre-K through second child to wear the mask, all they have to do is tell their principal and tell the teacher, and we will enforce that for that child. The reason that they are not bound to it is because, and this is just came from the doctors that advise LDOE. What they are saying is for pre-K, kindergarten, first and second graders, that the mask, they've done a study on this, that the mask actually creates an issue where a child touches their face more when they're wearing the mask. So although they're wearing the mask, it becomes less effective, and in this case, they would be more susceptible to COVID by wearing the mask. I know that's somewhat counterintuitive, but the idea is that it actually makes them touch their face more, and if we know 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds, we don't want any of them touching anyone's face, let alone their own. So when you put the mask on, it prompts them to do that, which increases infection rates. So they've drawn that line at second and third grade because of that rationale and logic.
Okay, thank you.
Protection for those that may be asymptomatic. You don't know, that child can leave that household with someone that's asymptomatic or has COVID and bring it into, they enter the school, and, someone can become, they can be,
Yes, ma'am. I mean, it's you're 100% right. But what we're going by is based on that minimum guidance. What they've told us is if we adhere to that, then we are not grossly negligent if anyone contracts COVID. And let me just say, this isn't just about being negligent. This is about protecting everyone, but we also want to be good stewards of the district as well. And so we are following that guidance. And I want to be very clear with all of you. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a biologist. I'm not a virologist. That's hard to say. I'm none of those things, and so I can only go by. I'm a simple educator, and I'm soon going to be a doctor, but not that type of doctor. And I can only go what they tell me. And any time that things somewhat sound counterintuitive, or I read something, whether it be on Facebook or otherwise, that I'm like, that doesn't make sense. I have to remind myself, you are not a medical doctor, and these things have been properly vetted by those who have committed their whole lives to this. And I ask doctors not to get involved in how to teach 4th grade ELA, and I think they would be happy for me not to get involved in telling them what to do. But I'll be honest with you, some of these things don't make complete sense to me, but I believe that the folks who've done this, I hope that they've done it without influence from politicians, and I hope that they've done it based on their Hippocratic oath, and that they feel as though these are the best things. But that's all I can do.
So these kids that are pre-K through the second grade, and I understand what you were explaining about them not wearing masks because of them, touching, and that's something that they're going to be curious about, and it's going to, just they'll be wanting to touch and pull and all of that. But how is the school district going to protect these kids, because their immune system is not as strong as older kids? They might come from a household where somebody has COVID or they are asymptomatic. So how are these kids in that particular age group going to be protected?
So
how are we going to protect them?
What I would say is a few things. Number one, if a parent just totally disagrees with that guidance from the doctors, they are more than welcome to put their kids in a mask. So that's first off. Number two, and this is, I do not want anyone to think that I am, making light of COVID, but everything we've been told is that the transmission rates and the way that young children are dealing with this is different. Now, I'll tell you straight up, if there's one child in this district who has a major struggle with COVID, that's one child too many. We don't need to devalue lives by saying, oh, it's just going to be one kid out of a million. That's one person's child. That's one person's, sweet little 5-year-old. All those things. We don't need to do that. But I do feel that after reading everything and seeing how things are going, and then also throw in there that we're going to have 40% of our students at those age levels who are going to be at home. And I think the parents who are sending their children, the ones I've talked to, and I'm not going to say that this is completely scientific, it's somewhat anecdotal, but the folks I've talked to, everyone I feel when they've chosen virtual or face-to-face, they've measured the risk. And what they're saying is, I care about my child, but I feel like they can go to school, and I think that's a partnership. We're going to do everything we can to make them safe, but I think the parents are part of that discussion. And if they choose to send their child without a mask, I think they're making some decision in regard to that. I'll be very straight up with y'all. My 4-year-old is going to be in pre-K. He is not going to wear a mask. We've purchased the mask, but we know how he is. And so we're not doing that. And so, that's a decision we made with the full knowledge. Now, once he gets to school, I do expect the teachers to wear their masks and to do all those things, but the things that they can control, I want them to control. The things they can't, such as LDOE putting out this guidance that pre-K through second should not wear masks, that's outside of the school's control because that's guidance from a higher source. So I don't feel like, we can only do what we're allowed to do is what I would say to that. But I mean, I want y'all to say, I'm giving y'all answers to this, but much of this is it's not black and white. And I think it's become annoying to hear this, but whether it's a doctor or whether it's the president or the governor or whoever, this is brand new to everyone. I don't think there's very many people living who were around in 1918 during the Spanish flu epidemic. And apparently we forgot all those lessons anyways, even if they were alive. So, I think we're all grasping at straws and we all want the silver bullet, and they're just not out there. Ms. Palmer has brought up the 100% virtual option, and I know she has it on the agenda tonight. It's not something I necessarily want to do, but I totally understand where she's coming from. I totally understand where the people who are sending their kids to virtual are coming from, and I understand where the parents who are sending their kids face-to-face are coming from. None of these are easy decisions, and I just think we need to give as much information to y'all, to parents, to everyone as possible, and just allow people to make the decision they think is best for their family while maintaining the guidance that the CDC and LDOE has given us, because unfortunately, that's all we got right now. And that's what I'm going to do and encourage everyone in my sphere to do. But some of it we're not going to answer tonight, I don't think, or in the nights to come.
Dr. Lord, let me say this. True story, case in point. And it don't make no sense, period. It's absolutely mind-boggling. 14-month-old, test positive. Mama, all the ones who kiss on them and everything else, and the child is asymptomatic. Just ran a little fever, playing just like nothing. Everybody else test negative. Everybody that's dealing with this child. It's just, it don't make any sense. But, and then they said, I heard today, that they have some type of, those babies have some type of antibodies in their sputum that keeps them from struggling with this stuff.
Wonderful to hear.
Well, and let me just say,
And that may not be all of them.
we thoroughly believe at this district, because it's a lot of anecdotal evidence, but all the scientific evidence, we believe in the masks. And I know, that's not talking about those younger kids, but we've discussed that a lot. But we do believe that if you wear this, you can be kept safe. laughs at me when I say this, but over the past 3 months, I've had meeting after meeting with random people that I've never met before, and they've come into contact with exponential number of people, and they come in my office, and a few months ago, we might socially distance, but keep the mask off, but over the past month, we've gotten much stricter with it, and we basically don't take these off unless you're in the room by yourself. And I feel as though I'm not high risk as far as underlying conditions, but high risk in the sense that I'm exposed to so many different people. And I just feel as though a lot of this infection is coming when we take a lapse in what we're supposed to do. You know, we've all seen the people who, they say I'm wearing the mask, but they're 2 feet away from someone and they have it like this. And in their head they're wearing it, but they're not. And I just thoroughly believe, and it's scary because we're talking about people here, and we know that we're only as good and we're only as strong as our weakest link. But if you do this effectively, I thoroughly believe, because I would not want my wife to go to work. My entire family is already in rapids right now. My dad is very high risk, underlying conditions, and he's at work. But I know how committed he is for his sake and for his grandbaby's sake to keep that mask on, and he does it, without fail. So I'm not worried about him day to day.
Mask in hands.
Mask and I mean, I can't tell you how many times I washed my hands today. Probably at least 15. It's just, I really truly feel that if we do things right, we can be safe. That being said, I wanted to add to this real quick. We also had the office procedures. This is again just putting in the strong start that people should socially distance. They have to wear their mask. We are treating the mask for employees. That's part of their. You have to do that. There's no, that's insubordination to refuse to do that, with the exception of when we work with people based on medical conditions. But someone who just says, I'm not doing that. Mr. Euler is crazy. I'm not wearing this mask. That's not acceptable. And we are holding our employees to the highest standard. There are numerous times throughout the day where we're having those awkward conversations where it's, hey, put your mask on. And even, I know in this room, even people who struggle with it, we're all making it work. But there's some other procedures, cafeteria procedures, office procedures, and then housekeeping. Again, we're getting into that super granular level where we are trying to think of everything, because we don't want someone to say, you didn't cover this. It's going to go in the plan. So when you look at Strong Start, it is the academic stuff, but it's all this other COVID-related stuff as well. And just to reiterate, the academic side, we have the 100% virtual option, which we talked about. We have the AB hybrid schedule for the 9 through 12, which is phase 2. In phase 3, we would opt out of that. And then for K through 8, they're going the entire time. But we've talked about that before, and I highlighted the changes for you. If you have any questions between now and Thursday specific to COVID or Strong Start, please reach out via email or call, or some of these things we can sit in the office for an hour or so and have our masks on, and I can answer anything you need, because I want y'all to feel comfortable with Strong Start. But I will tell you this, there have been times during Strong Start preparations where there's been nerves or stress or whatever. I am so proud of what the team and everyone in this room who's been a part of it has produced with the Strong Start. We've vetted it through numerous other entities, specifically today, LDOE, and they sang the praises of those folks back there and talked about how good of a situation Natchitoches Parish is in relative to others in the state who are struggling. And that's not about me, that's about the tireless efforts of some of these fine folks in here. But again, I want you to feel comfortable with it. Please reach out. I think I have a PhD in Strong Start, so I can answer any question. And if I can't, I know about 10 people who can answer it as well. So.
All right.
I have just one other quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
Could you maybe share a little bit about excused versus unexcused absences for children who may be, self-isolating because maybe a family member tested positive or there's some type of exposure?
So what I would tell all students and all parents, because I know there's parents who are concerned about, number one, we want to create such a seamless situation where teachers are going to be planning and implementing through Google Classroom whether they're virtual or not. So that way, whether it means a class goes home or an individual student goes home, and even this is outside of COVID. Once we, next year when we're done with COVID, but we're having hurricanes again, people can go home and not skip a beat. So, that they'll be able to work from home and make contact with their teacher through that. So they won't fall behind. Now, there may be a point where they're so sick they won't be able to work, and we'll figure that out. But what I want to tell everyone, and I think we mentioned this in the town hall, but I want to reiterate because it's worth reiterating. If a student has COVID and they're able to work from home in a virtual setting, but they miss, who knows? I mean, there's some people who really struggle with it, and they may be out for a very prolonged period of time. We are going to work with that family as much as possible to make sure that COVID absences are not going to make them fail or anything like that. Now, if a student's out an entire year and they're not able to do even virtual because they're so, we would be doing them a disservice to push them ahead, but that's such an extreme example. What we're talking about, are we going to fail a student because they're out for 3 weeks in October, but they were able to do virtual learning? No. So, I mean, the idea of Bessie has not waived any attendance policies, and they're the ones who dictate that, and they, everything will still stand of what's excused and unexcused, and obviously if you have a doctor's excuse for COVID, that's going to be excused absences. But when we start to get into that 3 weeks, 4 weeks of being out, but the student's doing virtual, then what's the difference between them and the virtual student? So we'll work with that, and I think, as far as policy goes, if we were to want to look at a policy that says if the students participate in full virtual, then would that attendance count against them? I think that's definitely something we can do. The easiest thing to do in that respect would be for them to, if they know it's going to be prolonged, they have COVID, they test positive, and hey, I'm going to be out for 3 weeks, then we can probably just say you are a virtual student, and then those absences. But that's going to, I'll be honest with you, I can't speak too much without talking to my best friend, Ms. Theus, because she is the guru in regards to that. But I just want to put that philosophy out that we're not going to fail students based on COVID stuff as long as they're kind of meeting us halfway with the virtual side of things.
Right, and it would be similar for students who are maybe a suspected case.
Correct.
Not necessarily doctor's excuse would be there, but they're quarantined.
Actually, yeah, if you get exposed, you're out longer. Because exposure without a positive test means 14 days of quarantine as opposed to 10 days for a positive test. So, yeah, we are gonna work with people. We don't want anyone to take advantage, but we realize this is no one expected this. We have to work with people.
All right, necessity is the mother of change. Consider approving new job description for increasing COVID-19 related duties.
So yeah, a lot of districts have done this, and what we basically wanted to do is we didn't want to recreate the wheel, but we wanted to add, we're going to add this, assuming y'all vote to pass this, we'd like to change one statement to everyone's job description, including the superintendent, because this goes from the highest to everyone in the district. And that statement is simple. It says, due to the increased requirements related to coronavirus, additional duties that support sanitation and safety of the school environment will be required of all employees. Because I need to be in my office at times, spraying down the, Ms. Page comes in and she does it, I tell her to stop doing it, she says, well, are you gonna do it? And then, we have a nice little laugh about that. But I need to be doing that type of stuff. Everyone needs to be taking care of their area because we don't have 1,000 custodians to do this. And they're already kind of being repurposed for what is important to them. So we're adding this so everyone understands that this is a team effort. And if the principal asks you to clean your room, that's part of your job description.
point, so teachers will have to clean their rooms if, every day, regardless of somebody is tested positive or not. So what, with their own regular cleaning supplies, or they're gonna be supplied,
So
the supplies?
every school received from the CARES Act, the smaller schools received $7,500 based on enrollment. The larger schools received $12,500 based on enrollment. Plus, they also received disinfectant that was not a part of that. And so they've been purchasing all those items for the teachers. And then I'm sure some teachers will have some of their own supply, but no, we have that money, and it's specifically for for cleaning and disinfecting. So we will take care of that. I'm sure there will come a point that we may need to order more of that, and we'll have to cross that bridge if and when we get to it. But we received that $2.9 million, and that's a large part of what we spent on besides technology was cleaning supplies and all those things.
So, but I have a question also about the teachers cleaning. Let's say a child tests positive out of their classroom. Why are they responsible for cleaning their classroom that may be contaminated with COVID?
Well, they would clean that regardless. Now, if there was a situation where that classroom had a student who was infected, then we would, I think one of the policies states that room becomes disinfected, so that room takes priority. So you might pull a custodian to help out, but if the teacher's in there, there's no point in quarantine.
No. Okay, we're asking janitors and we're asking teachers to go and subject themselves to cleaning a room that may be COVID contaminated. That's not right.
Yes, ma'am, but they were already, what we're saying is they were already in there.
Why are they're already in there, right? But, so it's just because they're in there, it's okay for them to still clean the classroom, because they're already exposed to COVID.
Well, and I think what I can tell you is that's why we're putting in everyone, so there's not someone who's singled out and the custodian's taking any more risk than anyone else, and myself included.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, listen. We're asking our teachers, we're asking our janitors to subject themselves to harm by cleaning a room that may be COVID contaminated. And that is COVID contaminated if a child is tested positive. That is not right.
And I think that goes back to my comments earlier that if we do things properly, if we wear the proper PPE while disinfecting, we can do things safely. If it makes
no, sir, that is not.
Well, I can tell you this.
You listen what I'm saying.
No, well, here, let me finish real quick. What I can tell you is the first time a student tests positive, the first time it's
and then risk going home to maybe their elderly parent, their children, and maybe contaminating them. No, that's not right.
Let me ask you this.
Yes, sir.
Let me ask you this. You talked about PPE. I personally have gone through my system, and what they had us do is put on the whole gown and the whole 9 yards. I'm just thinking that if a person had to go in and clean an area, I think we need to train them to do things a lot different than what you would do with just a normal cleaning. Even that though, I think we ought to have a way, maybe a film or whatever. This is what needs to happen, because some folks don't clean like other folks do.
There is currently, there's for teachers and custodians, there's a checklist, and that's going to be part of the beginning of your training for everyone discussing that. But I will say this.
But teachers don't get paid. Teachers don't get paid.
Yes, ma'am. But if I could finish, what I'd like to tell you is, everyone is taking on a greater burden this year. There's no denying that. You're 100% right. But what we're saying is if school's going to start, and I understand we're going to get to that in a minute. If school's going to start, everyone's going to shoulder some of that burden. I have no problem being the first person to go, the first time we have a suspected or a confirmed case, I will be the first person, whatever school it's at, I will be in there, no custodian, no teacher, and you you can put this on, this is out there. Mr. Eloy will be the first person to disinfect the room. And I will be the guinea pig, because I truly believe if we do it based on the guidance Ms. Page has given us, and we do it with proper PPE, we can do it safely. And I am willing to be that person. But if we are going to have school, if we're not going 100% virtual, this is going to be a reality of school life.
I trust you, Mr. Eloy, and I'll go into that room with you and do it.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Heroes.
But
So many
if a
heroes.
child runs fever, got all the symptoms, they're gonna be cleaned it before they find out if they got the COVID, they got the virus, because they're gonna clean it that day. So it's
That's
2
what
to 3.
child
It's by the time the parent come get that child and bring it to be tested, the day gonna be gone. So that teacher gonna be already cleaned that room. They might have to go back in and do a little bit more cleaning, but it's gonna be already there. Cause just cause they're running fever, just cause they coughing, the nurses, we ain't gonna have a doctor that'll swab their nose right there to give us in 2 hours or 3 hours. So it's gonna already be, I guess the teachers I know they got enough sense to know if this child got fever, whatever, go ahead and clean the room then. Not wait till tomorrow to come back and clean it after they find out.
The other thing they tell us too is on most surfaces, non-porous surfaces, such as what we're dealing with right here, it doesn't last any longer than 24 hours. So, we need to take it seriously, but it's not necessarily like a contaminated zone where everything is, and this is past also, again, you could have an infected room with a surface that has those things on it. If you don't touch your face, it loses its power to get to you, because you're not touching the things and then putting your fingers in your mouth or around your mouth. You're doing those things that prevent that. So there's multiple levels of protection here. The mask, not putting your hands on your face, washing your hands, and then also the cleaning part of it. But again, there's just the reality that we are living with COVID, and someone's going to have to do these things, and the only way to do it equitably and fair is to make it something that everyone has to shoulder, a burden that everyone has to shoulder.
In a case like that, I think we should provide those gowns and stuff just to ensure that that person won't be at risk in case that, that child actually might have COVID or,
Yeah, I think
for safety measures.
anytime we can do advanced PPE, but I will be honest with y'all, we have been trying to get those extended levels of PPE, because I think, and I'm looking at this page, because there is one area where it's mandated currently. Is that for?
You mean, which group?
The extent, I think in the isolation room, they want the person maintaining that to have the extensive PPE. But we are in the process of trying to acquire those things, because as you can imagine, hospitals are taking first priority with that. And so we're trying to get those, but we do not have that in yet. So we're reaching out to some different folks. Yes, ma'am.
And I don't know if this will help or not, Ms. Palmer, but we have several employees who work at Walmart. And as you know, they have memes and jokes all the time about the people who work at Walmart. And they've never had it. And to me, that says something. Now, they're very, very serious about wearing the PPE, but they've never had it. And we have several of them. So I know it's scary and I know you're concerned, but it does not mean that it's going to be a hot spot and it's the end. If we're being positive, we will have those cases. But Dr. Mason said it's probably going to be a better situation at school than it would be in Walmart. Yes.
Because
Or
we're taking
family
all these
reunion, or
precautions.
grandma's house.
Well, now, hold on. The community,
But for the
the
record,
community is.
I'm not scared at all, and I don't
Well,
think it's the end, I don't even think like that. But, it's just the reality of that part of our prevention from coronavirus is social distancing.
Right.
Stay home much as possible. Wash your hands, wear the PPE. We're sending our children and our teachers and our faculty and staff support teams back to a place where social distancing is the number one place for children, for people, where kids, half of the kids are not even going to have on masks, and they are susceptible to the virus. Studies have cases, children in that age group have gotten the virus. That's what I'm talking about. What I'm saying is we're taking a lot of risks. You're going through a lot of challenges that seem more than if you would have just did 100% virtual online learning. It's like you're going through so much trying to prevent it. If we just would have did 100 online learning, and then everybody would have all these issues, and we could work out the kinks for January. That's all I'm saying. I'm not scared, not one bit. And I don't feel like it's the end. And I'm a very popular person, and I'm a very grateful person. But we have to think about the reality of what we're about to do. And all the measures you take, and all the precautions you take. Yes, you said something about Mr. K. Romney said, yes, we're going to have cases. So if you already know we're going to have cases, why are we going to send our children and our students and the people and the teachers back to the schools where it's going to be okay? Why? That's all I was saying and asking.
Yes, ma'am. So I think the biggest issue here, a few things. So Dr. Mason, to clarify what she said, she mentioned that 2 places have increased their routines and procedures towards COVID to an exponential level. The first one being the hospital, and the second one, not to the same degree, but to a similar degree, are the schools. And that's by virtue of the money we received and all the things we're doing, etc. And what she's saying is, whether it be Walmart or Pizza Hut or other places in the community, they may be dictating masks, but they're not doing everything that the hospitals and schools are doing. And what they've actually found in the hospital, which you would think would be a hotbed, because these are people who, in many cases, have COVID and they're convalescing, that you would have more cases, more spread. And they've actually found the opposite, that when they have cases, it's because people out in the community. And what she said, and again, she's a doctor, I defer to her in all things medical. She has said that she believes if we get cases, it won't be, the site of infection won't be the schoolhouse, it will be other places within the community, and then people may come into the school, but that won't be the site of the infection. The other thing I would say is, I've said this before, I'm not against what you're saying if we had 100% virtual capability, if every student had internet and all those things. What I think we can do, and I don't want to too much go into that area because I know we still have to talk about it, is the fact that right now I don't think is the time to make that decision, because we have 3.5 weeks until school starts. During that 3.5 weeks, we have the advantage, because we push back the start date of school, to watch all these other districts. If we watch Rapides and DeSoto and all these other places, and we watch them, and they do amazing. They don't have cases, and they're able to, through their use of PPE and different things, they're able to really do things safely. Then we mimic what they're doing, and we enrich our plan, and we're able to do things safely. If we see that every district in the state that started school has just been, it's been awful. 90% of the students have caught COVID, and then I think you're 100% right. We don't follow people off the cliff. But I don't think we're at a point right now where we strategically need to make that decision, because we can sit back and wait. We can sit back and wait and watch the numbers. We can sit back and wait and watch these other parishes who are going at it now, and I commend them for doing it. I'm glad we're not doing it, but I wish them all the best. But we have the ability to kind of watch and then make a decision as far as what you're talking about goes. And I think we can do that in a way that's strategic and also takes into consideration everything that everyone's saying. But I think we also need to realize there are people in this parish who know the same things we know, and they want to go back to school. A lot of the kids who don't want to go back to school and families, they've chosen virtual. And I don't think there's a lot of people who have chosen face-to-face who have done so because anyone pushed them to do that. I think they did that because they want to be there. And I think, I've been able to talk to a lot of teachers, and there's a lot of teachers who feel the same way, and we've been able to put at ease. But I do appreciate where you're coming from, because I know it comes from a place of concern, and I value that, so.
There are also situations where parents don't have a choice because they have to work. And so they have nobody to supervise those children at home. So that's the other
Yes, ma'am.
scenario.
Yes, ma'am.
Let me say this, my only biggest concern would always be, are we prepared? And as long as we're prepared, we have the safety nets and things there, I'm good, because we've done all what we're supposed to. But if we don't have that, if the day we say we start, but all the stuff didn't come in, I'm gonna be the first one jumping up and down and say, oh, no.
And if you look at it honestly, there's a lot of kids who are gonna be more protected by being at school and being socially distanced and wearing masks and following all the protocols than they are if they're out in the streets or running back and forth in groups and playing basketball and doing all those things in big groups, because there'll be fewer numbers. And I think we're doing everything that we can possibly do to protect the children.
All right. Move forward. Consider approving COVID leave policy, emergency family and medical leave.
Okay, so this is a policy from Forethought, and basically what it does is it addresses the fact that if you have a COVID-related absence, there is federal guidelines for how that works. The first portion goes into something that really doesn't apply to schools in the same way that it would apply to people in other areas, but it's part of that entire federal document. And what that says is, if your child care provider shut down and you didn't have child care, then you would be eligible for extended sick leave. In most cases, we are the child care providers, and so our folks wouldn't necessarily apply for that in all facets, but if for some reason daycare is closed and schools didn't, which I can't imagine that happening, then they would be able to apply for that. The other thing is, what it does is it gives another 10 sick days to employees over and above what they already get 10 sick days from us, but then they get 10 COVID days. And those 10 COVID days are related to 6 different possibilities, and that's on page 4. And it's 1 through 6. Number 1, the employee is subject to a quarantine or isolation related to COVID-19. Number 2, the employee has been advised by a healthcare provider to self-quarantine. Number 3, the employee is experiencing symptoms and is seeking a diagnosis. Number 4, the employee is caring for an individual who's subject to either number 1 or number 2. Number 5, the employee is caring for their child who has had that child care closed. Or number 6, the employee is experiencing any other substantially similar condition specified by the Secretary of Health and Human Services in consultation with the Secretary of the Treasury and Secretary of Labor. So basically, what this does is if they have COVID, they don't have to use their sick leave that they already had allotted. They would be able to use those 10 federal days. Now, if they use all those 10 federal days and then say they had COVID and then a family member gets COVID, then they would have to start using their own sick days. This is not specific to us. This is what every district in the state is using. This is boilerplate. This is coming from the federal government and what they've put out for the Family Coronavirus Emergency Act and all those things. So this is some good stuff that helps our employees if they contract COVID or have a family member, and allows them to use those 10 federal days.
And it's all part of the Family First Coronavirus Response Act, so.
Yes.
That came out, went into effect April 1st this year, about the time schools closed.
All right. consider approving Title IX policy?
So the federal government, the Federal Department of Education has made a more robust Title IX sexual harassment policy. It's a very lengthy document, and what this basically does is it says any sort of sexual harassment between student and teachers, student, if that gets reported, we have to deal with that and address it, and it's a very formulaic way we do that. Our Title IX point of contact is Ms. Anita DuBois, and she has certain things spelled out in here that she would have to do, but it really protects our students and our employees in a more robust fashion to make sure that things aren't swept under the rug, and we don't deal with things in a way that's dismissive and not helpful to addressing responses to the world we are living into now with the Me Too movement, and I think this is very much a response to that we address these things with the full force of policy and take them seriously.
Any questions?
No, sir, this is due, this policy has to be enacted by the 14th of this month, so we're within the time limit.
Yep.
All right. 6, consider approving emergency closing of school policy.
So this is just a policy that many schools already had. We did not have it currently in there, and it's very straightforward. It allows in an emergency situation the closure of schools on an individual basis. So it's a little bit of a nuance to, and we've had this in the past where I think individual schools have closed because maybe they're HVAC, but this puts it in policy that allows us to close individual schools or multiple schools, but not the entire district based on, and the obvious reason here being COVID-related issues. But it also goes into severe weather and other emergency situations, and it allows the superintendent, after conferring with the school board president, to have that authority to do that.
Number 7, consider approving a public health emergency policy.
This came from our lawyers at Hammonds and Seals, and this basically what it does is it takes that minimum guidance from Bessie and it puts it into policy. So, for instance, you look at subsection A, it says the maximum group sizes, phase 1, 10 individuals, phase 2, 25, and then 50. This is verbatim the minimum Bessie policy. They've just taken it and put it into a school board policy for us to enact.
All right. Number 8, discuss possible 100% online learning for all Natchitoches Parish School Board students for the fall 2020. Take care of the pump.
Well, we already touched on this, and we can just sit back and wait, like y'all say. But I have a question. Did we not think about it in March and April? That we may be in phase 1 of lockdown in the fall.
So,
and
sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just saying, if we do have a plan for phase 1, and we do have a plan for if we were to shut down completely. But with that said, for shut down completely, it would be Google Classroom for all those students who are capable. But the scenario I look at is we have 30% of our students who don't have internet access. We are putting the hotspots for those students. But we know, even with those hotspots, that there will be people who cannot access them. Maybe they don't have transportation, or just the logistics of them getting out there, it may not be possible. So we have plans in place. It's just, it would be a massive compromise for those students without connectivity. I can just tell you that, packets, if we put everything on a hierarchy of what is the best for students, just purely based on academics, I don't think there's any educator you would talk to who would say there's something better than face-to-face. And then I think from there you would go synchronous virtual, then you'd go asynchronous virtual. After that, and I would say there's great distance between that, would be some sort of asynchronous option that's similar to what we did in the fall when we didn't have the capacity was those packets. The packets were great for that situation because, we thought they weren't gonna last long, but you're not able to give the direct, consistent, timely feedback with those that you can do on synchronous and asynchronous virtual, and you don't have someone in front of them who's able to do all those things a teacher does. So that's just purely academic, and so then when we put safety in there, you want to balance the academics with the safety as much as possible, but I think going full virtual, yes, it's heavy on the safety side of things, but there's a lot of compromise in there with the academic side of things. And so what I'm trying to do as a superintendent is I'm trying to balance safety with mode of academic delivery as much as possible. And I think we're doing that really well with the virtual program and those who can access it. But I think when we go to the 100% virtual, the balance of the instructional capabilities as they stand currently, yeah, we address safety very well, but we would not be addressing the academic side as well or as robustly. So that's where I'm at. I don't disagree with your thoughts on the fact that there is risk involved with being face-to-face. Even, because we know people won't follow things 100% of the time, and we're talking about kids here. We have high expectations for our adults, but we know there's realities to these things, and I think you're 100% right. It's just trying to balance the safety with the academics, and at some point we have to step out and do some, because we don't know how long this is going to last, and I think at some point we have to realize we can't have a child going 2 years without a good education. I mean, we're talking about kids not learning to read, and that has lifetime implications that are very scary. Lifetime implications for.
But I get that. Face to face, yes, that is the best option for our children. But this is a different time. It's not anything that it's serious. As far as in, we've never experienced it before. So it's okay that, a child may not be in the classroom face to face for a few months. It's okay. It's okay that I can't go out to the restaurant. It's okay. It's okay that I might not be able to go swimming. It's okay because it's a different time. So I know, face to face is the best option, but sometimes we just have to make some extreme sacrifices. And those 30% of kids that do not have hot spots, maybe we can work, that out when time comes, but we can't just let that be the reason. We just can't let that be the reason that we say we can't do online 100% learning. Well, whatever. What I'm saying is, this is an extreme time. It takes extreme measures. We have to make sacrifices. So, and I've said it over and over again. So, I'm gonna just sit this right here. That I hear y'all have done great work, and I know it's hard. But it sounds like it's harder to push everybody back out there than it is to keep them home and teach them online for a certain amount of hours. But I commend y'all, commend everybody. So I'm gonna just sit back and wait for y'all.
And thank you, Ms. Palmer, because I do want to say that we are not adversaries in this, because at the end of the day, we're all trying to do what's best for students. And we may diverge on exactly how that is, but everyone around this room realizes that you are advocating for children, and I respect that completely. And I think this boardroom is specifically intended for these types of discussions to make the best product and best decisions for the kids of Natchitoches Parish. So no, I appreciate you bringing your thoughts and passion to the meetings.
Thank you.
Ms. Palmer, let me say this too, and I'm 100% in agreement with, I wish we could go 100% virtual, but with that 30%, that leaves us with about, of course, about 600 and some students that wouldn't get what we are legally bound to give them, which is.
Yeah, it's actually closer to almost 2,000, yeah.
Okay. I'm talking about taking away from
Oh,
the ones
yes, sir.
who are already, would already be receiving.
Yeah.
The virtue. We're talking about an issue of about 600 and something. But we are legally bound to give a free and appropriate education. That 600 and something would not be given. They may be given a free education, but it wouldn't be appropriate for them. That's the only thing I would say about that. You know, and is there a way that we could give them an appropriate education? We could do a whole lot of things to try, but right now, I think we brainstorming. I even thought about, maybe dealing with some of the churches. But the problem with that is they come in liability. So
We've talked to superintendents across the state. We've talked to LDOE, and when they, we came up with Network Natchitoches kind of just in the boardroom talking, or in my office talking amongst ourselves initially. Every time I've talked to LDOE though, and they have the experts, they have all these people, they've come to the same conclusion. What they originally thought was this was a money issue, that a lot of people who don't have internet, it's a pure money issue. Well, it's not. For some it is a money issue and all, but for a lot of people here, it's a geography issue. And literally what we're talking about is to lay 1 mile of fiber optic cable to get high-speed internet. I've heard quotes just for 1 mile of over $100,000. And we're talking about hundreds, if not thousands of miles within the parish that need to be. So we're talking about millions, probably hundreds of millions, if not billions with a B of dollars. And so, what we're trying to do, and I've told this to a lot of people, is we're trying to create $1 billion infrastructure with Wi-Fi and all those things because we're using the funds we have. And I think it's a good plan, but it doesn't address everything. And I wrestle with these topics too. I want everyone to be safe, and I'm doing everything I can to do that. But then I'm also concerned with, if we want 100% virtual, what we're talking about is our students of color, our students, our more rural students, and our low socioeconomic students would be the ones who would, in large parts, be left behind in this. And that's not right either. And so I do think it's, like Ms. Palmer said, it's extreme times, but we also have to realize that we can't leave folks behind based on the amount of money in the bank and things like that. We have to, as you said, free and appropriate, but free and appropriate for everyone, no matter what their circumstance.
all right. Ms. Palmer?
I'm done.
Okay. Number 9, consider creating an assistant superintendent position or combined business management / assistant superintendent. We talked about this, I think even before we made the decision and chose you as superintendent. And largely, it was because we were dealing with a bunch of issues at our physical plants. We didn't have any project managers, and rebuilding things, putting them up and things like that, and they've been done wrong. And we need somebody to be able to look after that, because you have a whole lot of things that is necessitated that you do. And one of them is not running, trying to make sure people are doing what they're being paid to do, you know? So, I put this on here because I want us to look at it, and I want us to look at it seriously. And I think we talked about it, but I don't think we've looked at it seriously. And one of the reasons, I think, is because we talked about funding was one of the problems. Yeah.
So that would be my first and really only concern is funding, because like when we added those people, we did that in a way that absorbed things. So I mean,
much of it.
Yeah. I would never want to. I would never push away help. I mean, because this is a big job. Although I don't want to say that I can't handle it either, because we've been in the most extreme times and things are rocking and rolling. But I think if you could do it in a way that is cost effective, I'm not against it at all. I just think that the past few board meetings, I know we've talked about the economics, the budget side of things a lot. And so my only concern is that we've said that to people, and that we need to make sure, okay, if we're doing this, we do it in a way that doesn't kind of talk out both sides of our mouth. We're in a budget crisis, but we're adding a position. And if that's something that can be, both things can be accomplished, I think that's possible. The other thing I would say about combining positions is, one of the things I came into Natchitoches Parish and realized is that there was a lot of putting people in positions who at times weren't certified yet. And then you get maybe 10 years down the road and they're still not certified. I think out of respect for the profession of teaching, the education profession, I feel very strongly that people need to be certified. Just like when y'all were searching for a superintendent, having that certification. And this person would, if y'all went that direction, would need to have that certification as assistant superintendent, and they do the same certification as I do, because they have that title. The concern with combining business with that is typically, it probably would be difficult to find someone who has superintendent credentials, but also has that accounting acumen and all that type stuff. I'm not saying they don't exist. So again, I'm not against it. I don't necessarily know if those things need to be combined, because you would probably in some respect sacrifice something there. I know, for instance, Rapides they still have a finance director, and she's basically on equal stature with, they don't call her an assistant superintendent, but she's basically equal. Now they have an assistant superintendent who does more of that kind of physical plant type stuff and all that type stuff, but they don't do, that person doesn't necessarily do like spreadsheets and budgeting and all that type stuff. So I really still feel that you could have that person who's an assistant superintendent, again, if you can do it fiscally, and I don't know I'm not at the granular level with the budgets to be able to say, oh yeah, we can do this, and we can have this price point for a salary, and that makes sense. We would have to delve more into that, and in this interim time without Mr. Foshi, we need someone who can tell us the cold hard facts. I personally feel that we need to have someone over finance they're not an educator, they are business only. But if we can do those two things together, I mean, I'm not against it, and I wouldn't fight that. I just would want to make sure that we can do it without putting ourselves in a fiscal situation. But I think we can have more discussion about that and how that would look and all that type of stuff.
I think what you're saying, we need a controller.
Let me put it this way about the finance department.
Yeah.
I feel confident that, I can read spreadsheets with people and all that, but I feel like there has to be someone who doesn't have that education brain. They're accounting, and they're just telling me, yes, you can, or no, you can't. And I'm just thinking, there's a lot of people who may be business-minded, but they don't have that accounting education and ability, and also the superintendency type stuff. But yeah, I mean, I'm not against it at all.
Board members,
That's it.
that concludes your report. Thank you. Lengthy report, lengthy meeting. A lot of good information, a lot of good interaction. Our Thursday meeting will start at 5 p.m. Please be on time. We've got a lot to cover and a lot to vote on.